2, 3, 4.
Hey eavesdroppers, welcome back to our circle. So on last Monday's episode, we talked about archetypes. We told you guys what they were. Twinity told you the psychology behind it. We gave you guys the 411. So on today's episode, we're going to go into one of the seven feminine archetypes that prevail in contemporary society. And I hope you guys took your quiz. And if you didn't, why not? You had a full week. So we said no excuses. If you haven't taken it, pause this, go take it, and come back. Also, if you enjoyed last Monday's episode and Fridays, then you can join us on Patreon, ad-free, and you get to see a little behind-the-scenes footage from us and our lives. You're welcome. Again, just giving you guys gems. So the first one we're going to go into is the Maiden. And Twinny, please do as you do and lead us into this.
If you took the archetype quiz and you scored a high percentage for the Maiden archetype, you probably have some very useful qualities. Traditionally, the Maiden is defined as an unmarried woman. She's going to be like young and naive and free-spirited. She's going to be essentially untainted by the world. The Maiden's energy represents like innocence and independence, and she pulls from the individuality of childhood. So she's going to be transformative, and she's going to let her instincts guide her, and she's often going to experiment creatively one way or another.
Right. And what's appealing to me the most about the Maiden is the fact that she hasn't been hardened by the world around her yet. So we've been conditioned to think that you have to go through certain experiences in order to mature, and that maturity comes with age. But with that like mentality, we lose our spontaneity, our imagination, and our trust. And the Maiden retains all of those qualities. So the Maiden is lamented and resented by some and worshipped and fetishized by others. So they have this effect on people, kind of like similar to a teenager, which the Maiden actually represents.
Yeah, it's like how teenagers are resented and mocked throughout society, while simultaneously being fetishized by those same members. What's that phrase, twin?
Which
that
one?
Like, you know what older women will say to their husbands?
Like, don't leave me for some younger woman.
Yeah, they'll be like, don't leave me for the younger model or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why they're so scared of this is because either consciously or unconsciously, shout out to you, and they know that younger women have like this carefree spirit that's very attractive to people with masculine energy. And so she's often put down by other women, the Maiden, for having this energy, because these other women, they can't embrace the carefree energy for themselves.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or does not, I'm just talking crazy?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh. No, it makes sense.
Who am I on this podcast with?
I thought you were asking our producer.
The eavesdroppers?
Yeah, the eavesdroppers. No, it makes sense, because when you're older, having that carefree spirit is looked at as like you haven't grown up, like you're just immature. So I think the jealousy in that comes from them not being able to exhibit, even if they have it in them, even if they want it, they care too much about what the other women around them in their circle, their peers, would think about them. And I think that's where that phrase comes from. Like, don't leave me for some young woman. Like, it's truthful, but it's actual like resentment, because I can't exhibit what they would exhibit to you, you know?
Yeah. And of course, on the other side, there's just like predatory men. But we're not talking about that side. We're talking about on the women's side, putting all that other stuff aside.
Right.
How many times can I say side in one sentence? Eavesdroppers, keep track.
But in its most divine and developed form, people who embody this archetype, they retain their carefree spirit even through old age. The development comes from life experiences and being able to maintain control over certain instincts.
It's kind of like that cool aunt. You know, she's still mature. She got a house, she got a car.
Yeah.
but she just has like this youthfulness to her that never went away. She has this like childlike soul and this childlike view of the world. And that's why normally as nieces and nephews, she's the cool aunt, because as kids, we can relate to her.
She's like that aunt that was like just on the phone with me, asking me about my grades, scolding me. And then I call her over the weekend and she's like in the Bahamas. You know what I mean?
Like, dang, auntie.
Right. Like she living her best life. And that happens when you learn to control specific instincts and also just have the mentality that you know who you are in a sense. You know what I mean?
She has like the best of both worlds. She has the maturity and the knowledge from going through life, but she still retains that youthfulness.
Yes. And how we were talking about the carefree spirit, that's associated with like naivety in younger women, which is also kind of a disadvantage for the maiden archetype. Because sometimes they're not taken seriously or they're even taken advantage of, that predatory mean thing that we were talking about. But that's a whole nother thing. And then similarly to the young woman that the archetype represents, the maiden hasn't yet gained certain life experiences needed to sensibly navigate through life. And that's why when you know how to control it, and I don't really think you have to be a certain age, because now younger women go through way more than we go through as we were younger women. You know what I mean? I think it has everything,
that knowledge early on.
Exactly. I think it has to do with what you're exposed to. And in this day and age, we're exposed to a lot more than we were when we were growing up.
Yeah.
So like, take Angelina Jolie, for example. Like her younger days, she was rebellious and carefree. She was wilding, okay? She was wilding out.
Pause, because we need to talk about this for a second. Eavesdroppers, tell me if I'm crazy or if y'all remember this. Do y'all remember when she was like kissing her brother on the red carpet? Like back in it was like early 2000s. I know I'm not crazy. She used to be wilding out.
She was. I don't remember that specifically, but I know like of other stories where she was. But now like it's a good thing that you can just like cycle out throughout different archetypes, and that when you take the quiz, you'll better understand like you're not one thing or another, you're a percentage of something. And that can change depending on where you are in your life, what you're doing. But going back to Angelina, in order for a woman in general and in these archetype phases to move from the maiden to the mother, or even from the mother to the queen, they must first overcome some major challenges or loss in their life. And then we see that in her because she had to overcome the loss of losing her mother, and she went through a divorce. And we have to remember, like, she's in the public eye. So what we experience as tragedies in our own private life, she had to do that publicly. So I feel like that births a different you in some sense. And now you see her, she's a humanitarian. She's an established actress. She has all these different things going into her. And that's because she stepped into her mother archetype. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't have the maiden in her. It just means that she learned to embody a new presence going throughout everything that she experienced in the past.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's the maiden archetype, huh?
It is, in a little nutshell.
In a little nutshell. This is actually my highest percentage. So ooh, I think, actually, I don't remember. Should I take the quiz again?
Yeah, you can.
But yeah,
mine is.
Oh.
That you cut me off.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think mine is the boss, which makes total sense. Y'all learn about that more.
You are the boss. I feel like that comes through.
Thank you. We know that there are more like intricate details of the quiz, and we're not going to leave y'all hanging. Like after we go into the dominant ones, we're also going to go into the 13 seduction archetypes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you haven't taken the quiz. So I'm not speaking to you at this moment. But once we go over these, and the reason we're not doing a deep dive into these is because we're going to do a deeper dive into the 13 ones. So stick around and we're going to tell y'all all about yourselves. We're going to unpack this in layers, just like an onion, a beautiful onion. Mm-hmm. Has layers. This has layers. Sure, and we want to make sure you guys understand it fully so you can have it to your best advantage. You're welcome times 3.
Ooh. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Thank you, eavesdroppers, for joining us today. Continue to join us through the next several weeks. We're going to be covering the rest of the archetypes. And again, if you would like to listen to this episode ad-free, you can support us over on Patreon and receive every episode ad-free plus bonus content. Well, I guess that's the 401 on the Maiden archetype. Signing off.